What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and today it's time to start the Scream review series. We're getting ready for Scream 5. It's coming out on Friday. I'm starting this a little later than I wanted to, but I'm going to try to zoom through all four of these movies. I'm watching them as I review these. I just finished watching Scream, the original 1996 horror movie. And, you know, this is a film... Yeah, I'm a fan of the franchise. It's not one of my favorite, one of my top horror franchises. In fact, I haven't watched these for a long time, so I am looking forward to watching these four to get ready for the new film. But this original movie in 1996, you know, as a massive horror fan, it was pretty awesome because, you know, at that time, horror was starting to die out. All the great franchises were pretty much done. I mean, if they were releasing anything, it was garbage. You know, Halloween had run its course. We just got, you know, the recent Halloween 6 in 1995, and it was... and it wasn't the best. I was actually really pissed off when I watched it. I did a review on this channel for that movie. And, you know, the Friday the 13th franchise, Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, you know, their best days were behind them. And it seemed like we weren't really going to get any new horror franchises with new horror icons or anything like that until this movie came along. And it spawned a bunch of sequels. It spawned a new killer in a way with Ghostface, even though the killer is not always the same person, which is definitely different. It's not always a Michael Myers or a Jason or a Freddy or a Chucky. It's someone different every time. But the difference is you don't know who it's going to be. So that's what I like about this franchise. It's different in that way. When you watch it, you're trying to figure out, or you may not be trying to figure it out if that's how you choose to watch it. Either way, they don't really tell you who the killer is until the end. And that was what was really interesting about this original Scream movie. I remember watching it in theaters, and I was really enjoying the film. The first time I watched it was my favorite. With the rewatches, I see more flaws in it, and I see more things that I don't love about it, but it's still a really fun horror movie. And yeah, the reveal at the end is awesome, but you got to start out. Let's start out with the big positive of this movie, and that's definitely the opening scene with Drew Barrymore. And you can see she's pretty prominent there on the poster, and you know, I thought she was going to be you know, a big part of this movie, and they just whacked her within the first 10 minutes of this movie, and she's hanging there in this an amazing scene before the title even hits the screen, and it hits the screen with some power right there, and you're like, holy shit. But that entire opening scene was awesome. The phone call, the questions about horror movies. First, she hangs up 2 or 3 times. She's like, yeah, it's wrong number. It happens. Keeps calling back. She's like, look, you know, I don't really have time to talk right now. See ya. Hangs up. Keeps calling back until it gets serious. You hang up on me one more time, bitch, and I'll slit your throat. That was not word for word. I don't remember, but you get my drift. It got serious real quick. She realized something was wrong at the point that he said, I want to know who I'm looking at. And that's when she knows, whoa, what did you say? I want to know who I'm talking to. And she's like, that ain't what you said. And things just get insane. But that entire opening scene, one of the best opening scenes in horror history, really, and pretty freaking awesome. If you're a huge Drew Barrymore fan, that probably pissed you off because you were hoping she would be the final girl. She would be the main protagonist of this entire franchise. But no, it turned out to be Neve Campbell, and she has done a fantastic job. She's an awesome final girl in this movie. And I like they kind of did the same thing back in the day before my time with Psycho. Back then, Janet Leigh was this huge superstar. Janet Leigh was one of the biggest Hollywood names at that time, and people went to see this movie, you know, and had no clue, you know, horror wasn't even really a thing at that time. And so, okay, it's got Janet Leigh in it. Okay, cool. And so they're watching, the movie's going along, and, 30 minutes, 40 minutes in, she gets stabbed to death in a shower, and people were in shock. Not only were they not expecting that, and that kind of thing didn't happen in movies back then, but they killed off, their big star, not even halfway through the movie. In this particular case, we're talking about before the credits hit. First 10 minutes, she's gone. So it took some balls to do that, and I think the movie's better for it. But then we meet Sidney Prescott, and, talk about strong female characters this day and age. Like, we got to have strong female characters because they never existed before. First of all, of course, everybody knows they've existed for a long time. Any movie fan knows, and Sidney Prescott is among some of the best. I mean, she is absolutely badass. We find that right away when she meets up with Gail, the reporter, and, acts first polite at first. Gail's trying to ask her a bunch of questions, and her friend is like, no, we don't have time for this. And then, Sydney's like, no, she's just doing her job. Isn't that right, Gail? Right, Gail? Gail's like, yeah, that's right. I am just doing my job. Mm-hmm. And then she punches her right in the face, and it's like, damn, Sydney is not one to be messed with. We find out right away she does have some dealing with, the murder of her mom. She's dealing with some PTSD, but she's obviously a very strong, badass character, and she is not to be effed with. And you find out she's really smart, too, because the first time that she's attacked, Then she sees her boyfriend and she's happy for a second. Then she says, wait, hold up. How'd you get here so quick? And she figures out right away, or at least she highly suspects, that this dude is the one who was trying to kill her, even though it's her boyfriend. So, and that was a pretty crazy scene. He gets arrested, and, you know, it just creates one possibility. Is this dude the killer or not? But then we meet the rest of the cast, a bunch of, you know, young teenagers who just act crazy like young teenagers do, you know, with their conversations and stuff. Fairly natural for the most part. There are a few exceptions to that, which I'll get to in the negatives. But for the most part, just a bunch of crazy teenagers. They got, you know, wild personalities. They're very memorable. That's the thing about this cast. I mean, everyone, you know, is extremely memorable. In addition to who I already mentioned, you know, Matthew Lillard as Stu. Dude is just absolutely crazy. Just insane, very inappropriate, crazy guy. Then, of course, Randy is awesome. This is the huge horror fan, and, you know, he just kind of reminds everyone of ourselves. He knows all of the tropes of horror movies. Her boyfriend, Billy, who I mentioned, this guy's kind of a creepy dude, but because it's kind of obvious that he's the obvious killer, you think, well, maybe he won't be the killer. At least that's what I was thinking first time I saw this. Turns out, of course, spoiler alert, I'll get to that in the negatives, but, you know, the entire cast just, in, you know, doofus, you know, as his sister calls him, you know, and he's, you know, actually an officer, but, you know, she completely disrespects him, and I don't know how he got that position. Talking about Dewey, not doofus, that she calls him that, but yeah, he's not one of my favorite characters, and him, you know, the relationship that he tries to get with Gail, but the whole time I'm like, now Gail's just playing this dude to try to get closer to the crime scenes and try to get closer to what's going on because she's a reporter. And she does a great job too. Speaking of Gail, played by Courtney Cox, and, you know, she just plays this great job of this character who's really doesn't seem like a very good person. Her work comes above everything, trying to get the story, trying to get the scoop, to the point that, you know, if there's people dying and she's like oblivious to it all. She's just trying to do her job until things get so crazy. At some point, she finally realized, oh my God, I'm about to die. It's time to scream now. But yeah, she does a great job too. The entire cast is really good, but not just the cast. I mean, sometimes you can have good actors and the characters can be crap. The characters are well written, memorable, funny, and just, you know, enjoyable to watch on screen. But the other thing about this, talking about the guy who, you know, talking about all the horror tropes, that's the thing about this movie. It's definitely self-aware in a way, you know, because everyone's talking about how horror movies go. And there are a lot of scenes in this movie that kind of are tropey that I wouldn't normally like that much. But I'm like, okay, is this kind of part of the experience? I'm not really sure, because it's a serious movie. It's to be taken serious. But at the same time, there are certain scenes where, you know, they fall right into the same tropes that they're making fun of. And I don't know if that's part of the experience. I think it is, but sometimes I don't really love it. And it kind of takes me to some of my negatives about this movie. But before I get into those, I will say one last positive is the ending, the way, the reveal of the killers. It's just insane. It's hilarious and crazy. And when you find Matthew Lillard's character, Stu, again, is just, the dude is just off his rocker. When they stab each other, it's hilarious and frightening and everything. It's just a crazy scene there at the end when the final reveal happens. I'll talk about as far as if the reveal was really shocking or not in a minute, but still, it was really entertaining. The final act is awesome. The opening act is awesome. And overall, it's a really fun ride. And most importantly, this succeeded in creating a new horror franchise. And I thought that wouldn't happen, because at some point you stop looking forward to the next, Friday the 13th and the next, now at this point we're looking forward to more, because, it'd be some kind of a reboot. We had the 2009 one and then the lawsuit, and I'm just talking one franchise. All those old franchises, would love to see them reboot and do something different. They had a new Candyman this year. But as far as, in 1996, there wasn't a lot of horror franchises, that were really they were pretty much played out at that point. So Scream was successful in creating something new, something fresh, and I think that it was just awesome for it, and I couldn't wait for Scream 2. That being said, going back to what I was talking about, there are certain moments where there are characters talking. One point, Sydney's in the bathroom and listening to some girls talking about her, and it was just so unnatural. It was so on the nose. It was really cringe, I thought.
She was never attacked. I think she made it all up. Why would she lie about it? For attention. The girl has some serious issues. What if she did it? What if Sydney killed Casey and Steve? Why would she do that? Maybe she had the hots for Steve and killed them both in each other's range. What would Sydney want with Steve? She's her own bubble butt boyfriend, Billy. Maybe she's a slut, just like her mother. You're evil. Please, it's a common fact.
There's also kind of the typical moments where in horror films where characters make dumb decisions, right? And they do that in this movie a little bit. And I think that's part of the experience because, you know, there's even a point where Sydney's, you know, just got done talking about how horror movies are so stupid. A killer comes through the door and instead of trying to run out the back door, they run up the stairs. And then the killer came through the front door and she went and ran up the stairs. I was like, that had to be intentional. But there's some certain dialogue I don't find that great. I find pretty unlikely, pretty cringy, pretty on the nose. And that happens occasionally. There's another character I forgot to mention who I really enjoy, and that's the Fonz. Henry Winkler plays the principal, and there's a scene that I love that really, really connects with me. And that's a time when, okay, so a couple of students actually wear the mask to screw around and harass like Sydney, whose mom was murdered, remember? And anyway, just extremely inappropriate and just really horrific behavior. And he completely chews them a new one and and expels them on the spot. They're like, that's not fair. He's like, no, what would be fair is to cut you with this knife and have you hanging there, you know, inside out. I don't remember the exact verbiage, but it was an awesome scene, the way he chewed them out.
You make me so sick. Your entire havoc-inducing, thieving, whoring generation disgusts me. So, 2 of your fellow students just savagely murdered. And this is the way that you show your compassion and sensitivity, huh? Let me show you something. You're both expelled. Get out.
Oh, come on, Mr. Hembry. It was just a joke.
That's not fair. You're absolutely right. It is not fair. Fairness would be to rip your insides out, hang you from a tree so we can expose you for the heartless, desensitized little shit that you are.
Later on, unfortunately, he gets killed, which I was disappointed about. But then when the students find out about it, they're chilling, they're watching horror movies and stuff, having a good time. And I don't know if I buy this scene because a phone call comes in. They find out he was, the principal was murdered and was hung up, on the football field. And how do they react? Let's go check this out. And all excited. I'm like, dude, I know that, teenagers can be, completely horrible, but that was like, there's no way. Like, you'd be, you're not just going to run out there. First of all, you have to have some kind of intelligence. Like, you could get killed too. But also, like, yeah, zero compassion. I mean, zero, caring at all. Their principal was just murdered and dead. People are dying everywhere. And it's just a continuous joke to them. And it's just, at some point, I don't buy it. Yeah, he gets killed. And the kill scenes in this movie are okay, not that great. They're mostly just, a stabbing from the back, the stomach. Just that's the MO of this killer. Takes a knife and he stabs you. And there's some gunshot. There's some other things here. There's I don't know if I love so much the scene where the girl trying to crawl through the cat door or whatever, and then the garage goes up and she gets killed. It's pretty cool, but I don't see a garage door opener being strong enough to lift a human being. That's not how garage door openers work. Garage door openers are not that I mean, you have to have some jigsaw, mechanisms there working, going to lift an entire human being. Garage door openers are just simply there to open the garage, not to lift hundreds of pounds. So that kill scene, although is kind of cool and gruesome, is also stupid. And so I have to admit that. And lastly, yeah, look, you watch this movie, I think it's a lot of fun. And the first time I watched it, I didn't know who the killers were going to be. I knew who the obvious couple of options were. But I'm thinking to myself, they're trying to throw us off track. Maybe it's going to be Dewey. Maybe Dewey is actually not so dumb himself. He's a badass killer. And he's going to get serious. And it's going to, we're all going to whoa, mind's blown, right? Who knows, right? I don't know who it's going to be, but her boyfriend and Stu are the two most obvious choices, right? I thought it would be one of the two. I will say it surprised me when it was both. Everything made sense at that point. It was like, well, of course it was both. I should have seen that coming. But I thought it was probably going to be Stu because the boyfriend, he was a suspect the entire movie, and she was onto him the entire movie, and everything he did was creepy, and the way he talked, he just was a creepy dude. And I thought, okay, it won't be him. And then when Ghostface came behind him and appeared to kill him and cut him up, I'm like, okay, yeah, it's not him. So they got me there when it turned out to be him and Stu. It all made sense at the end, but it did get me. I was 16 years old. Maybe nowadays, maybe if I watched this movie for the first time ever today, maybe I would see it coming more. I'm not sure about that. But when I saw it, I was like, well, yeah, it wasn't mind-blowing. I'll say that. It wasn't mind-blowing. The next option would have been probably Randy, but I really didn't want it to be Randy because I really liked Randy. And Randy was a possibility because he was such a horror freak. But he kind of connected with the fans. He connected with the audience. And so we want to feel like we can connect with this guy. He loves horror movies. We love horror movies. He's talking about the tropes. We can all connect with all that. I didn't want him to be the killer, so I'm glad he wasn't. Other than that, though, this movie, it's a fun ride. It's a cool movie. It's not... I didn't find it to be, the greatest horror movie of all time or the greatest horror franchise of all time, but I feel like this first one was just a breath of fresh air at a time when there wasn't a lot of horror movies, that were really coming out during that era. During the 90s, the 80s was horror, right? Obviously, the late 70s with Halloween, and then the 80s were just knocking them out of the park with the Halloweens, the Friday the 13th, the Child's Plays, the Nightmare on Elm Streets, and a whole bunch of other franchises as well. Some not so great, but still fun. And by the 90s, it was kind of over with, but then Scream brought it back in a big way. So there you have it for Scream, guys. And for a final score on this one, yeah, I don't think this is a masterpiece. Some might say it is just because of the way that they brought horror film into. I think that in a way it was just the idea was just a really good idea on how to breathe some new life into the horror genre. But the execution, and I can't say it's a masterpiece of a movie because there's just some things that I don't love about it that I talked about. But overall, still, I would say Scream is freaking awesome. Let me know what you guys think of Scream. Have you seen it? I'm sure you have, or you wouldn't have watched this review full of spoilers. And are you looking forward to the new one coming out here in a matter of days right now? I'm definitely looking forward to it. I'll have a review for it. I'm very worried about it. My expectations are not through the roof. The trailer, I did a reaction. I was mixed on it, but we'll see, guys. We will see. Look forward tomorrow for Scream 2 review. Then I'll review Scream 3 and Scream 4. And then hopefully by then, we'll be ready for the new one. I'm sure we will be, and I need to hurry and get these reviews out. Hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe. It really helps. Let's go. We're on the road to 1,000, and we'll see you.